Hi there. My name is Mark Fleury, and I am going to be doing a demonstration today entitled How to Recite Poetry from Your Soul, using what I refer to as the heartbeat technique. Now, just a little background about myself. I have been reading, loving, writing, reciting, and publishing poetry for the past 30 years. And the first time I used this heartbeat technique for poetry was with a poem called Van Gogh. And I've included that poem in the description of this video, and I'll be referring to that again later. But feel free to look at that poem at any time as it pertains to the demonstration. The first poem that I used the technique with was the poem called Van Gogh, and by a happy coincidence, I also wrote the poem with the technique. So this demonstration is for recitation, but if it resonates with you, I also encourage you to use this technique to write an original poem of your own as well. I also wanted to mention that even though I love poetry and have for a long time, writing it did not come at all easily to me. I fell in love with poetry at a young age, particularly the beat poets. Jack Kerouac, he was a poet. He would say something like the vast empty atom, which is this imaginary universe, and it had a huge impact on me, and it caused me to be really inspired. And so what I did was I filled up journals, page after page of these journals with content. And I was pretty overwhelmed at that time. And I think, looking back, I think what was happening was that even though I was getting all of this content down, there was a disconnect between form and content. I wasn't able to harness the content into a form, and that was a problem if I wanted to actually write poetry. So the way that I solved this problem was originally something that I referred to as the 3-syllable technique. So essentially I would start writing, and rather than just flooding the page with content, I would stop at the 3rd syllable. And what this did was profound. It gave me time. It gave me time to deliberate and decide what I wanted to do next. It let me decide where I wanted to make the line breaks and the stanza breaks. It allowed the imagery and the ideas of the poetry to emerge in a slow, thoughtful, deep, way. And it was a crucial moment for me when I developed this technique or this method of writing. And I realized that after any given 3-syllable count, I could wait for as long as I wanted to or needed to, and then have another 3-syllable count, write down 3 more syllables. And then when I finished the poem, I read it out loud using the same 3-syllable count. And when I read it out loud, I realized that the 3-syllable rhythm that was being formed was actually the beat of my heart. So my poetry, the beat of my poetry was following the beat of my heart. And that's how it became called the heartbeat technique. And in practice, I wanted to show you how it's done. So the poem is called Van Gogh. As I said, it's the earliest example of when I did this. It was many years ago. And for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to show you how to recite it this way, even though it was also written this way. And in the spirit of the 3-syllable count, I'm going to divide this technique into 3 really simple steps. The first one is just to look at the poem mentally and just take it in, and then divide it with your mind alone into 3-syllable segments. And it's important just to do it with your mind. And then the second step is to actually read it out loud with the 3-syllable pauses. Ideally with the pause being the length of a heartbeat. But it doesn't have to be. So do that. It's going to sound kind of fragmented and maybe a little silly, But what it's really doing is it's engaging your heart into the recitation. And then the third step, which is what I'm going to show you, is just reading the poem naturally at your own pace, the way that you would just normally read something. However, because you are now conscious of steps 1 and steps 2, you will be engaging your mind and your heart into the reading, which is how your soul will engage in the recitation. When you do the third step, it's not going to fall into precise 3-syllable segments, but surprisingly, it actually does get pretty close to doing that. The poem wants to match the heartbeat. Once you realize it can do that, that's the way the poem sort of refers to be spoken. So I'm going to read the poem now. It's called Van Gogh. A winter solstice night. The window-framed sun sinks into ash-pink clouds, cluttered by a dead oak, stoking the fireplace heavens. The window, ticked by ice, freezes. Another sun, reflected within the frame, sets across the pane through a thick blue sky, slashed with the strong hands and patience of a crazed surgeon. Liquid wax hardens on the sill. Van Gogh was a good teacher, but I blew out the flame, his sun. The orange smoke slithering center hisses between my fingertips. The window blows inside. Glass bits twist my sleepless eyes. The empty frame is flooded by a pure as birth light inside the shine. The demon's final dictation. Only the godless, with no interest in worldly success, escape crucifixion. All right, thanks. I wish you well.